Excuse me. It's not how I planned on starting off. So I want to welcome everybody. The title for what today's session is the future of real estate, and which is the eXp model explained. I get a lot of questions about it. I thought it would be appropriate to take some time to explain what's going on, answer some questions. If you have specific things you would like to know, you could start writing them down. I'm going to be covering some things, but I'm happy to answer any questions that I can. Just a little bit about my background. I've been in real estate a long time, a really long time. I spent 21 years, I know it sounds hard to say, where I was the vice president of the largest Century 21 group in Northern California. I spent 7 years as a productivity coach and a certified trainer for Keller Williams. And I've bounced around from a couple of little brokerages to see if that would work. I'm a broker's license, so I'd consider just doing my own thing, you know, buying E&O and that sort of stuff. And there's a lot of problems with that, which I realize because I've been a broker for a long time. And last September, I joined eXp. And I had been, eXp is, we're going to talk about how it was, where it came from a little bit, but it had a lot to do with people that were at Keller Williams. And a lot of people I knew at Keller Williams had joined eXp, and so a number of them had recruited me, right? Asked me, you know, do you want to join? Let's talk about it. And I didn't do it years ago, right? One of the decisions I regret. I didn't do it years ago, and the reason I didn't do it years ago is I had this mindset that my business model involved me being in brick and mortar buildings with people in front of me in order for it to work. And then COVID came. And not doing that anymore. And in 2020, I joined eXp. And by the way, by that time, I had known that 2020 was one of the best real estate years I'd had in a long time. So in September of 2020, I joined eXp because I realized that the reason that I hadn't joined years ago apparently wasn't a big deal, right? Because things were going just fine, you know, without that component. And since then, I've learned that there's, you know, workarounds. 2021 has been probably the most successful real estate year I've had literally in decades, right? And although I had bounced around a little bit, I found a place, I found a home, right? So I'm at eXp. And so I want to just talk about why. What are the different things that I think are the big selling points? We're going to talk about leads, right? I know that's a subject some of you might be interested in. Training, right? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about equity, interests, and we're going to talk about revenue share. And anything else that you would like, anything else that you'd like to talk about. Now, in the thing that I pasted, let's see if I can find this over here. It's always fun. There was a presentation, and there's certain parts of this that I wanted to cover. And again, if you have a question, once I'm doing something in PowerPoint, I can't really see the chat. I can kind of tell that somebody's chatting. But if you have a question and you know how to unmute yourself, which as a real estate agent, I would assume you know how to do, just, you know, shout it out, right? That sort of thing. So the things we're going to cover very quickly is who we are, the business model. We'll spend more time on that. Everybody wants to know about compensation, right? And I'm going to talk about leads and things like that. The founder of eXp is Glenn Sanford. I was aware of him a long time ago. He was a relatively famous real estate agent down in Southern California. I had gone to seminars that he was a speaker at, and he was with a major national franchise, right? And back in 2009, Glenn had the idea for the first cloud-based brokerage. Now, a lot of people have had ideas, right, in real estate. I know lots of real estate agents and brokers who have ideas, but there's a limited number of them that actually took their idea and did something with it. There's Rifkin with Compass. There's Gary Keller with Keller Williams. There's Glenn Sanford. And after that, you know, there hasn't been a lot recently. Now, the growth, we founded in 2009, And you can see it just starts to grow over time. In 2014, Glenn Sanford was listed as one of the most powerful people in real estate by Schwanpool, which is a guy that does this Trends magazine. We started an equity program in 2015. I'm going to talk about that. Growing agent count. And in 2021, and this has been...
Hey, Michael, are you sharing? Because, yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you.
I don't think you're sharing.
Thank you for saying that. All right. Gee, one minor thing, right? One minor thing, right? You forget one little thing, and thank you for saying that. I obviously need help. All right.
Yeah, we see it now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else that I seem to be doing that doesn't fit, just just give me a shout. All right, because just give me a shout. All right. So growth. All right. Core values. Let's talk about the business model. And I'm going to talk a little bit about equity. I'm going to talk about, but where is the world moving to? Many years ago when Netflix started, they had approached Blockbuster Video and told them that they had a great idea for distributing movies. And Blockbuster Video said, we don't need your idea. We already know how to distribute movies. And of course, we all know what went that way. Some of you may not even remember Blockbuster Video, but that's where you would go and get a movie, right? You would go walk into a little store and see if it was there. All right, somebody's asking me to repeat my history, maybe at the end. All right. So then Amazon. Did you know that Amazon started by selling books? Right? They started by selling books. They've gone a little bit beyond that now. They're the largest employer in the world. And there used to be places like Circuit City where people would buy stuff, but I haven't seen any of those anymore. And eXp is doing the same thing to traditional real estate brokers that Netflix and Amazon did. How many of you have called a travel agent, right? Do you actually do that anymore, or called a taxi cab? And so the movement of our economy and businesses to cloud-based solutions and companies has been going on, and that's what eXp was the first cloud-based brokerage. So when I talk to agents about eXp, it sounds too good to be true, right? And by the way, I liked when I was at Century 21 most of the time. I was enthusiastic about Keller Williams most of the time, but there were always these limitations, right? The training, but it wasn't that great. The technology, but it was a certain level. And one of the things that people have trouble understanding is when I talk about eXp and that the technology is better and the training is better and the fees are lower and the split is higher and the cap is lower and you get equity and revenue sharing, and how do they make money, right? How can a company provide more, charge less, and still make money? And the answer, of course, is because they don't have thousands of brick and mortar buildings all over the country that they're paying rent on, and utilities, and then there's tenant improvements, and there's, issues where you have to have a receptionist and all of that sort of thing. And so that's how that's the secret sauce, right? That's how the program can provide more. Now, compensation, I was talking to a guy yesterday from Century 21, right? I was there for a long time, and he had been calculating when he sells a property at Century 21, on average, how much does he have to pay to the Godfather, right, to Century 21. And Century 21 takes 8% off the top, and then there's other fees, right, when you close the transaction. And it looked like he was getting about 9 to 10% taken off the top every transaction. So even at Keller Williams as a franchise, your first so many transactions are 6% off the top. Many franchises have franchise fees. eXp is not a franchise. Therefore, there are no franchise fees. There's a single broker in California. There's no independently owned offices, that sort of thing. The commission is now, and most real estate companies have like a baseline. When I was at Keller Williams, it was 70-30, and then there was a cap, and the cap was usually 33 to 45. It depends on the location, because it was to reflect the overhead of that location. The baseline commission for eXp is 80-20. 80% to you and 20% to eXp, but it caps at $16,000. Now, if you want to understand what does that really mean, if you're looking in terms of dollar volume and a 2.5% side, let's say you find a buyer and the buyer buys a property and you get a 2.5% side, we're looking at roughly $3.2 million in volume. If you want to express how do you cap based upon gross commission income, when you've earned $80,000 in gross commission income, right? If eXp is getting 20% and you've done $80,000 in gross commission income, then eXp has gotten $16,000, and then you're at 100% commission for the rest of that year. You're the most that you would be paying eXp in commissions in any given year is $16,000. Then there's a revenue share program, which I'm going to spend some time on, equity, and there's even healthcare options. And I'm going to talk about some of the cloud-based solutions as we go along. Our training is in the cloud. Now, there's a lot of local presence by eXp. I went to the to the Association of Realtors barbecue, and eXp had an event. And when the virus isn't as quite as, as where it is right now, when that's happening, we're going to be doing, our normal pattern is weekly lunch and learns, and there's live classes. But locally, and I do Zoom classes every week, and people that are part of my group, which includes some big producing agents, do classes every week. But in addition, on eXp and what's called the world, there's over 50 hours of training every week. And so there's no desk, right? So there's no desk fees, right? And you have instant access to support and training through going through what's called the world. So let's talk about, we mentioned a little bit about the commissions and the cap. So 80-20 is a split with a $16,000 cap. You get 100% after that. There is a $250 cap transaction fee after that. So what about fees when you close a transaction? When I talk to agents at other companies, and I had a guy from Intero join eXp, I had a transaction with him, right? And my buyer was, let's just say, underperforming at times. When I got the message that the listing agent wanted to talk to me, I was wondering, oh my God, what did this guy do again? Because he lived nearby and was, and the agent said, no, I want to talk about eXp. And he told me he was, according to him, at Intero paying $300 a month just to work at Intero, and was paying, he said, roughly $300 every time he closed a transaction. Now, to join eXp is $149. That's a one-time fee. $85 a month is the cloud brokerage fee. Out of that $85, $50 of it goes to the different technology platforms, which I'm going to talk about. That's Breakthrough Broker, SkySlope, and a program called KV Core. And then the rest of it goes for the online training and everything else. And one of the more common questions people ask me is, what else do I have to pay for every month to work at eXp? And the answer is $85. Now, when I was at Keller Williams and you close the transaction, hundreds of dollars would be taken off the top in garbage fees. I'm just calling it what it is, right? Century 21, you close the transaction, there were hundreds of dollars in garbage fees. This guy had hundreds of dollars in fees when he closed the transaction. And he asked me, what are the fees when I close a transaction? And are there fees? And I said, oh yeah, there are fees. Every time you close a transaction, there's a $25 broker review fee and a $40 risk management fee. And for those of you that aren't, don't know what that's code for errors and omissions insurance. But notice in that little footnote, it caps at $500. it caps at $500. So after you've done enough transactions that you've paid $500 in the $40 risk management fee, that goes away too. And now the fees are, excuse me, only $200. Is there a fee for a transaction coordinator? The answer is yes. Transaction coordination is an outside service, which you could choose to do or choose not to do. But we don't provide free transaction coordination. You really think out of $65 we're paying for a transaction coordinator, right? But that's up to you, right? You can use your transaction coordinator. We have transaction coordinators that know the eXp system. The software that we use in transaction coordination and interfacing with eXp is called SkySlope, which is something that you might be familiar with. So back to the $40 risk management cap at $500. I've talked to agents at offices where they're charged $4,000 a year for errors and omissions insurance. Hundreds of dollars every time the transaction closes, hundreds of dollars every month, a lower split, and oftentimes there is no cap. So one of the reasons that people join eXp is they just do the math, right? And they say, well, if my volume were at eXp, how much money would I end up with compared to what I'm getting now? And the difference sometimes is very dramatic. One of the, let me see if I can do this. Let me see if I can do this. All right. For some reason, it's still zooming around. So this is an article. It's not the one that's here we are. This is a recent article from the Motley Fool, which is an investment kind of media company. And it's called, this was August 28th, 2021. If you don't know this real estate disruptor, you're missing out. And it's about eXp is redefining how homes are sold by making top agents an offer they can't refuse. Now, in it, it goes through and discusses the commission plan and how it all works. But one of the things that I like to point out is when they analyze agents at eXp, and you look at how much they received in commissions versus how much they paid in company dollars, the average commission split for an agent at eXp is over 90%. That's our average commission split. Right now it's 80-20, but only up to $16,000, $80,000 in GCI. By the way, that's $3.2 million, as I mentioned, in closed transactions. I just closed this week on a $3.9 million house. In some markets, one transaction, and you could cap. Look at Compass. Compass's effective commission split is 80%. Right? When they look at how much did the agents pay to the company versus how much did they get. Realogy, who we'll talk about a little bit later, you may not know who they are, but that's the name of the company that owns Coldwell Banker and Coldwell Banker Commercial and Century 21 and Sotheby's and ERA and Better Homes and Gardens and the Cochran Group and Klein Realty and Zip Realty and Cardis, the relocation company, and a group of title companies, including Cornerstone Title and some others. It's a big company. The average commission split for the Realogy group, when you look at how much they pay to the company versus how much they get, is only 75%. So what happens is I have a lot of people who decide that they want to make the switch to eXp simply because of this, right? Just because the amount of money that their effective commission split is now going to be significantly higher. Now, when I talk about there are four things really that, and this isn't in exactly the order, but I'm just following, the slides that they gave me. One of the things that really interested me is something called revenue share. Now, out of the $16,000 that gets paid to eXp as a maximum, by the way, I get asked this question, what if I don't cap? Do I owe them, the rest of the money? The answer is no. If you don't do any transactions, you don't owe them any money. If you only cover half of the cap, you don't owe them any money. It's just that once you cap, you don't owe any more money from commissions after that. But one of the things that interested me when I was at Keller Williams is that they had something called profit share. And eXp has something called revenue share. And the way that that works, think about this. If you were to refer a buyer to a real estate agent in Texas, would you, and that buyer closed a transaction, would you expect a referral fee? And the answer is probably yes. Now, if you recruit somebody to a real estate company, you introduce them, how about that, if you like that word better, to a real estate company and they close a transaction, why don't you get a referral fee for that? When I was at Century 21, the office that I recruited for at one point was the number 3 Century 21 office in the United States. At one point, 70% of all the agents that worked at that office I had brought into the company. And guess how much money I get paid today for all of that, even those agents that are still there? And the answer, of course, is nothing. Right? As soon as I left Century 21, in fact, they never paid me based upon the production of the people that I recruited, right? That went to the owner, that went to the broker. Now, when I was at Keller Williams, they had something called profit share, which if you introduced somebody to Keller Williams and they closed a transaction, they would pay you, let's call it a referral fee, based on the company dollar, right? You understand, not out of the agent side of the transaction, but out of what the company got. The problems that I had with the profit share program is, number one, it's based on profit. Right? It's based on profit, and it was based upon profit depending upon an individual market center. That's what Keller Williams calls an office. So I actually had some top agents at a local office, and most months I wouldn't get anything because the office wasn't profitable. One month I got from that office 24 cents. That's what they paid me. Right? Because it just wasn't that profitable. So, and whether or not the office is profitable goes up and down. By the way, having said all that, I was at KW for 7 years. I'm still ranked in the top 1% of Keller Williams lifetime profit share earners. Like last month, it was $2,600. The month before that, it was over $6,000. Right? I'm still averaging over $2,000 a month from Keller Williams, and it's because I know that that system works that I was motivated to go to eXp, because eXp doesn't have the overhead that KW does, so they're not basing it on profits. They're basing it on gross revenue, right? So it doesn't go up and down. And again, it comes from the 20%. So out of the $16,000, which is the maximum amount that you would ever give to eXp in any 1 year, half of that money, 50% of it, $8,000, is given back to the agents in terms of revenue share. How much money, how many of you have ever recruited an agent for your broker? And the agent closed the transaction. Did you get anything? I have people from Exit say, oh, yes, at Exit, if we recruit somebody. How about if that person you recruit somebody? Do you get anything? No, we don't get anything. Right? And so I recruited lots of agents who have been productive, and the broker benefited from that, and not me so much. Now, let's say you join eXp, and you introduce a person to eXp, and by the way, it could be anywhere in the world. We'll talk about eXp's global footprint. It wouldn't have to be somebody at this office. It wouldn't have to be somebody, in this area. It wouldn't have to be somebody in California. It wouldn't matter if they were in Texas. It doesn't have to be in the United States. They could be in Canada or Mexico. We're opening in Germany. We're in India, right? Anywhere in the world. Somebody joins eXp, and you're the one that brought them in, you're going to get 3.5% of the gross commission from that person out of the company dollar, right? Not out of the 80% that went to the agent, but out of the company dollar. Now, that's a maximum of $2,800 a year. So if I recruit one person who caps, and in my market, capping means 1 or 2 transactions. 3, it'd be hard not to. I recruit one person who reaches they do $80,000 or more in gross commission income. I make $2,800. every year that person is at eXp. If I got 10, right, which is my initial goal, I'm getting very close to that, I would be making $28,000 a year. Right? That's what would happen if I recruited one person. Now, this grows because, let's say, some of the people that I recruit eventually recruit somebody else. Move this down. So, let's say I recruit Bill. All right, I introduce Bill to eXp, and Bill caps, I get $2,800. Bill introduces Mary to eXp, and Mary caps. Bill gets $2,800, but I get $3,200. It goes up on the second level. Now, if you're thinking, because I've heard this from people, I'm not a recruiter. Right? I'm an agent, I'm not a recruiter. You know what this is like? This is like agents saying to me that they're not a listing agent. I have had people say that, no, I'm not a listing agent. Well, then you need to learn to be one. Where is the money made in real estate? Who makes the most money? At Keller Williams, who makes the most money? And the answer is probably Gary Keller, right? He's a billionaire. At Compass, who makes the most money? Rifkin, he's a billionaire too. Right? And so what is it that's different between what they're doing and what we're doing? And they're leveraging because they're making money off of a large group of people and not just from their own efforts. Let's say you're not really into this. And by the way, not everybody is into this. All right? Some of you may already be thinking, well, I don't even want to bother joining a company that does something like this because I don't want to be a recruiter. You don't have to. Right? There are many people joining eXp with no intention of ever doing this, but let's say you introduce one person a year to eXp who is able to cap. One person a year. And you do that 5 years in a row. You now have 5 people, 5 agents on your first line, and if they're all capping, you're going to get $14,000 every year just from those 5. But the goal, and if you're thinking, well, that doesn't, I think I could do that, but the goal is to get your 5 people to also get 5 people who eventually cap. Now, that 5 times 5 is 25. At $3,200 a year, that's $80,000 from the second level. So if you recruit 5 people who eventually have 5 people, you would be earning $94,000 a year just from revenue share. So wait a second. The cap is only $16,000. If I recruit 5 or 6 people, let's say, the cap, that's more than $16,000, which means if I recruit 6 people who cap over time, it means eXp is giving me back every year more money than I'm paying to them. What's my effective split? If the most I give to eXp is $16,000, but I get $18,000 back, it seems like my effective split is over 100%. But beyond that, and by the way, these other people could be in Arizona. They could do you think that people from our area move to Arizona? Could you recruit somebody in Arizona that you could send referrals to and they could send referrals? How about Texas? Send referrals. How about Nevada? Right? They don't have to be in your area. You're not tied to a specific location. And so in order to reach these different levels, you need a certain number of agents, right? And so you can see that sort of a breakdown. This chart shows it a little bit better. Let's say you don't really recruit anybody. You don't do anybody, but somehow one person joined and put you down as a sponsor, and the line kept going, even though you're not signing up anybody else. You're going to be getting the first column, right? The first column. Where you want to be is to get into the second column. And notice at the second column, you start getting 3.5% and 3.8%, and it starts going up. In order to do that, you need 0 to 4, right? What are called first line qualifying agents. Now, how do you become, in other words, if I recruit somebody, they never do anything and never sell a house, it doesn't really count. So how much does somebody have to do in order for them to count, which unlocks the different levels? The answer is not very much. So in order for somebody to count, they have to do either 2 transactions in 6 months, or, listen to this, $5,000 in gross commission income. This, by the way, is set up for the United States, not necessarily for California. Now, if you're wondering, that's gross income, $5,000. If you're wondering how cheap would a house have to be if it was at 2.5% side for the gross commission to be only $5,000, the answer is $200,000. You understand? There are mobile homes that sell for more than that in my market. So basically what it's saying is that in California, if you recruit somebody who does 2 transactions a year, you're way past that, right? Way past the $5,000. And then as you keep adding people on your first level, it unlocks another level, then another level, and another level, and another level. And on it goes. Now, one of the things that I like, what people, I'm still getting paid from Keller Williams, but I haven't worked there since 2017. Why? And the answer is because their program, you vest in 3 years. And eXp has the same model, which means that after 3 years at being at eXp, I'm going to continue to receive the revenue share from the people that are in my group, whether I'm with eXp or not. I could retire, I could start my own brokerage, I could go work for somebody else, right? None of those are very likely, but it continues because you vest in the program. So equity. So we've talked about, the commissions and fees, right? We've talked about the fact that if you help the company grow, you can get back all of the fees you paid and more, and actually build a residual income. Because you see, when you're in sales, what happens when you stop selling? You stop earning. It just stops. But number 3, and this is sort of related to residual income, is equity opportunities. So the Century 21 office, when I started working at it, they had 1 location. I recruited hundreds of agents. They'd expanded to 5 locations. How much of a percentage of equity in the company was I given? The answer was nothing. Nothing. Right? They didn't have stock, and they wouldn't have given it to me anyhow. Keller Williams, I was there for a long time. I ended up with no stock. Would you send a link to the presentation when you have a chance? Yes, we'll paste it in again. We'll paste it in again. All right. If somebody that's listening could take what I pasted before and repaste it, I would appreciate that. Hopefully somebody's doing that. Thank you. All right. But stock, I was at KW for a long time, recruited a lot of people, generated a lot of money. No stock because it's a privately held company. There isn't any stock. Every time, equity means ownership in the company. So every year, the first transaction, they give you stock. When you cap, they give you stock. When you have an agent that you sponsor closes their first transaction, they give you stock. If you're doing a lot of transactions, and it means you have to do roughly 20 transactions after you cap, which is about and $500,000 in gross commission income, the company will give you $16,000 in stock. In other words, your whole cap, they'll give you stock in eXp. And I'm enrolled in what's called the agent equity program, where when I close a transaction, 5% of my gross commission goes to getting eXp stock at a 10% discount. For those of you that are familiar with the term, this is an RSU, a restricted stock unit. Now, is the stock worth anything? I don't know. Let's, is the stock worth anything? So, this is, I'm just going to, which company do you think is worth more? Hilton Hotels International or Airbnb? Which company do you think is worth more? Well, a lot of people guess because the way the topic that is maybe Airbnb, But Hilton Hotels today, this morning, and since I'm recording it, today is September 2nd, 2021, had the value of its market capitalization is $34.92 billion. Right, that's what Hilton Hotels International is worth. Airbnb is worth $99.41 billion. So Airbnb is worth almost three times as much as Hilton Hotels, but Airbnb doesn't have any rooms. How could they be worth more than Hilton? Hilton has rooms all over the world. Let me see if I can do that. Realogy. I mentioned them before. They're the ones that own Coldwell Banker and Century 21 and Better Homes and Gardens and ERA and Sotheby's and Coldwell Banker Commercial and the Conklin Group and the National Realty Trust. The National Realty Trust owns Klein Realty and Zip Realty, and Carter's the relocation company and a group of title companies. I'll bet they're worth a lot. Well, as of today, their market capitalization was $2.2 billion. And then there's RE/MAX. Right? Who's the biggest real estate company in the world? Well, Keller Williams says they are. RE/MAX says they are. Who really knows? I don't know. But RE/MAX is a great big company. Their current market capitalization is $645 million. Wait a second. What about the new big dog? What about Compass? Which, by the way, unless they've changed this recently, is not making money, actually. But that's not necessary in order to have stocks. And their market capitalization as of today was $6.643 billion. A little bit more in the decimals there, but $6.6 billion. By the way, when Compass went IPO, about 35% of the stock was bought by SoftBank, which is the company that is backing Compass. They're being propped up. I'm just saying, possibly being propped up by, the big bank that owns them. What about eXp? Now, eXp Realty, eXp World Holdings, which is the commercial and the real estate and all of the other affiliated companies that are part of it, our market capitalization today is $7.39 billion. So to recap, I left RE/MAX out because they're not really a player in this. Realogy is worth 2.2, Compass is worth 6.6. And eXp is worth $7.3 billion. We're worth more than Compass, and we're worth more than the company that owns Coldwell Banker and Century 21. And we're worth a lot more than them. And how is that possible? Well, it's because of the same reason that Airbnb is worth more than Hilton. What does this mean? All right. What's in it for me? All right, yeah, that's nice. Well, one of the reasons why I talk about this is because you get stock when you're at eXp. Right? You can buy stock, it's traded publicly, but at different levels they give you stock. And when I was at Century 21, originally it was the biggest real estate company in the world. And I remember when Keller Williams was opening, in other countries, we're in Vietnam, we're, all these other places. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's nice, right? If I'm at KW and they've opened up, in Madagascar, all right, I guess that sounds good, but it really doesn't help me as an agent, right? You understand, if you're an agent in a real estate company and your company has opened offices overseas, that does not really help you. Most likely doesn't help you. But because eXp agents are equity owners, right? They own stock in the company. It helps me because the more money that eXp makes, the more money my stock is worth. And by the way, this has a profound effect. I see people at eXp helping other agents that are not even in their revenue tree, not even directly under them, simply because the more we help, the more the company is worth, the more the stock is worth. Let me just see. All right. People are just thanking Danny for taking over my handouts. Healthcare. Yeah, we have I don't need this. You're going to have to think about why. But there's most of the agents that have done this have told me that they're saving a lot of money on the healthcare. We're a big company. We have really good healthcare. Cloud-based, we have a cloud-based training system, and I'm going to talk about leads in a second. These are all the different things that are included. Live training is CRM. And enterprise is a place where agents can go to get marketing materials and access a variety of different things. Transaction management is through SkySlope, which is included in the 85. Everything is paperless. We have Workplace, which is a Facebook business platform where people share things, and there's topics and there's videos and training sessions and things like that. But let's talk about leads. Let's talk about leads. We all want them, right? I don't recall, when I was at Century 21, I was the relocation director and I got a few leads. But when I was at Keller Williams, nobody ever gave me a lead, right? After I wasn't the relocation director, Century 21 never gave me a lead. Very few people have ever given me a lead, other than somebody I know referring somebody to me. But what eXp has is a system. It's called KV Core, KVCORE. You can Google search it. It's not a program that is owned by eXp, but out of the $85 a month you spend on eXp, 50 of it goes for the technology suite, which includes KV Core. It's not owned by eXp. Now, the reason I repeat that is one of the issues when I was at Century 21 is they used a variety of different overlapping CRMs, but Century 21 and Realogy had your database, and literally if you leave they could they would turn over your database to another agent. And if people say, well, I'll just delete all my contacts before I leave, that doesn't work, right? They can put them back in. So I know when I was at Keller Williams that they had their own CRM. It's now called Command, and I know a lot of Keller Williams agents that won't use it. And the reason they don't want to use it is they don't want, Gary Keller at night, I guess, reading their email or whatever it is. But again, they're nervous. Real estate agents might be a little bit paranoid. But by the way, just because you're paranoid, it doesn't mean you don't have real enemies. And they just don't want all of their business in a platform owned by somebody else. Same thing as with Compass. I have agents that I know that are at Compass, and they don't use the Compass CRM and any of that because they don't want Compass to have their databases. Everybody understands the fear that is involved, because if you leave the company, they've got your database, they'll turn it over to somebody else. KV Core is not owned by eXp. In other words, if you leave, you quit, you can just pay KV Core. By the way, it costs about $600 a month as a solo agent to have KV Core, but you could delete your contacts, export them out, and no one's going to do anything. There's a firewall. We do not have control. eXp does not have control over your database. So you get a website, and notice it talks about an in-house lead generation program. So having a web page isn't going to really do anything for you. I hate to say that. And most of the web pages that I see, most offices are providing their agents look like they were built in the 1990s. And the only thing you can really do on the web page is search for homes to buy. But many of our clients have heard of Zillow. They've already heard of Zillow, so they're not going to the website to search for homes to buy. What would allow a website to generate leads? And the answer is landing pages and squeeze pages with an automated follow-up system. Now, you might be thinking, I'm not into internet, and I don't know how to do that, and I don't want to generate those. The world is changing. And the agents last year that did really well were agents that became good at lead generation using the internet. So we are provided at eXp with the engine. One of the best integrated website, landing page, squeeze page, customer relationship management system. We can send bulk text messages. We can send video emails. We can send bulk emails, of course, and all that kind of stuff. It looks people up on social media. We can do all that. Integrated blog. We've got all that. That's the engine. But there's gas that has to be put in the engine. And what that means is agents usually pay for some type of an advertising platform. And what we're seeing is agents that are willing to spend $250 a month and using one of the automated systems that KV Core has are generating between 60 and 100 internet leads every month. You're getting 2 a day sometimes as a result of it. And it's a turnkey system, right, where they go to the different landing pages, they give up their information because we're giving them something, they go into a campaign, you're notified, you follow up with them. It's leads. And by the way, we have a lot of packages, automated farming programs, one's called Nosy Neighbor, automated social media programs. Those involve additional charges, but the engine to do all this is already provided for you. You just need to give it a little bit of gas. And if you have a big enough social media following, you may not have to spend anything. But for a nominal investment, you're going to be producing leads. We also have package pay-per-click leads with Google and that sort of stuff. Live training. How do you become better, at real estate? And training might be the 3 things. More than 50 hours every week is in the cloud. Now, I do classes every week. My group does classes every week. One of the people in my group that does classes every week that I invite my people to, his name is Tom Daves, and he's in Sacramento. I'm part of his group out here in the Bay Area. Tom Daves was the #1 agent in Keller Williams 7 years in a row in the 7 times in the United States. He does classes. In that group is a guy named Randy Bird, and Randy Bird was a instructor. He was a coach with Tom Ferry, and he does classes every week. So in addition, and we do things when we can, because we're allowed to, locally that are live, and they're lunch and learns, and they're sponsored, and those things are typically done on a weekly basis once we can do that. So if you want to become better and you want to become more successful in real estate, one thing you could do is learn how to do some things that you don't know how to do already. More training. I was a certified trainer for Keller Williams. I was the director of training for Century 21 for the region at one point. I have a pretty good idea of what companies offer for training, way more training, way better training, and higher levels, right? Not just beginner. Most office training programs are designed for new agents, and they're, a 30-day program. If anybody else comes and talks, it's because they're trying to sell stuff. Resources, community, diversity, eXp Life, international collaboration. Where right now there are plans to open in the Philippines and Malaysia. I don't know exactly when. There's probably going to be another 9 countries added this year. If you know people, have any connections in any of these countries, that's great. Does it help me that we've opened in Portugal, right? Does that help me? Well, it does, because I have stock in eXp, right? And so they make more money. My stock is worth more. Agents get to participate in decision making. It's something called an advisory council. We have a bunch of partners. You don't have to use them, but look at the one that's sort of in the middle. It says Express Offers. What Express Offers is, we're back to leads. Express Offers is an iBuyer program. If you're not sure what that is, Zillow has one, KW has one, other companies, I think Redfin has one. If you've ever seen the signs or the marketing that says, "We pay cash for homes," have you ever wanted to be able to talk to somebody who's got a fixer or something like that and say, "I will pay cash. I've got cash investors lined up that will buy your house"? That's through Express Offers. It's an iBuyer program, and it increases the number of things that you could use to market. Making it rain is, well, anyhow, there's a lot of these. Yeah, the Amazon of real estate, growing. We're the Real Trends, which is a major periodical. We are ranked as the #1 independent for closed transactions in 2020, the #1 mover, the #2 in volume. In terms of transaction size, that was done in 2019. We were the #5 real estate company in the United States in terms of transactions, #7 in sales volume, #5 in agent count. What that means is that we're not small, right? There's over 7,000 agents in California. Oh, by the way, one more thing about leads. if you're at a office, you may be allowed to advertise any of that office's listings in your marketing, doing a just listed or just sold or promoting it. You may be. Sometimes they'll tell you, you need to get the listing agent's permission. But even if Keller Williams is a franchise, Century 21 is a franchise, so that rule doesn't apply to other offices necessarily unless they have the same broker. So if I'm at Century 21, I might be able to run ads on the listings my office has, but the other Century 21 broker, I can't do theirs. Because eXp is one broker per state, and all 7,000 agents, you could advertise any eXp listings. Any of them. You don't need to ask permission. It's in the agreement because the listings belong to the broker and we're all part of the same broker. And that gives you a lot more marketing potential than you have if all you can do is advertise your stuff or the ones that are at your office. Agent growth, yeah, it's been crazy. In fact, what's happened, and I'm going to be taking questions in a minute if I can get back to that. That's not what I wanted to do. Let me go over here. So, is this it? That's not it. Second quarter 2021, it went well. $1 billion in revenue. And we've declared a cash dividend to the stockholders. Second quarter of 2021, our revenue increased 183%. Our profit increased 133%. Income increased. Operating cash flow increased. The number of agents, look at this, agents and brokers on the platform increased by 87% to 58,263. We also have a commercial division. So because I spent a long time at Keller Williams, I'm still part of some chat groups, and somebody had posted a recent Keller Williams image touting the number of agents they had. Right? And I forget the number, but it was like, hey, we had this many agents. And somebody else had found a similar post from KW from 2018, which they also posted. What is the difference between the number of agents in 2018 at KW and the number of agents in the post last week? And the answer is 400. 400 agents. That's how many more they have today than they did in 2018. eXp added 800 agents last week. Right? We're increasing. Last year in 2020, most of the real estate companies lost agents. RE/MAX lost agents. Keller Williams reported fewer agents. Most offices reported fewer agents. eXp just last year grew by 60%. And you can see in the first quarter, it's grown by 87% year over year. Plus international, right? Plus international. And yeah, that's sort of, I'm trying to think if there's anything that I left out that I always thought was important. Any questions? Let's just see if you guys are a curious group. This is the audience participation part, if you're wondering when that occurs. Not a lot of audience participation. Sometimes changing offices can be the worst decision. It kind of depends on why. There's an old saying among real estate brokers. They would say, well, she or he, they keep moving, and every time they move, they're closer to the door. And usually when that's happening, you see an agent moving from more of a full-service office to less of a full-service office to even less of a full-service office to where they are eventually working at a flat-fee office that provides very little service. And if you look at where are the people making the most money in real estate, it's usually not at those offices. So they keep moving just because there's a little higher split, there's a little less fees, there's a lower per transaction fee, right? That's sort of the idea. Then some people change offices because if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting. And if you want to get to better, the first thing you might have to do is get to different, right? First you have to get to different. And so if there's a different platform, if there's a different philosophy, if there's more marketing help, if the office is actually going, the company is going to do something to help you generate leads and to get business, then that becomes then it becomes life-changing to change offices. This last year, since I've been at eXp, has been one of the best years I've had in real estate in a long time. Now, Kelly is asking about training for new agents. We have training for all levels. And I do classes every week on Zoom, pretty soon maybe live, but right now on Zoom. And those are designed for new and slightly used agents. But eXp has a program called Fast Start, which is a training program designed for new people. It's a series of modules. And so once you finish those modules, then you can go to level number 2 and level number 3 and level number 4. We have all the training that you would need in order to be successful. Each of the different states have their own classes on contracts and their own meetings and things like that. There's local groups that do things as well. But there's a lot of training for not just new people, but agents at different levels of experience. If you're interested in internet lead generation, you'd like to become better at it, we've got lots of classes, different levels, showing you how to use the software. Plus, the company KV Core that we work with has a tremendous amount of training for new people as well. If I think we're running close to the end, I'm not being peppered with questions, but that may be because it's either a good sign or not a good sign. I'm not really sure. Let's say you would like to talk about this. You like to talk about this. One of my links, and by the way, you'll see I have a video that explains eXp that you could have one like it too, so that if I'm talking to people, they can go and watch the video first, and it cuts down, on some of the questions. But you'll see there's a CalDRE link, and also that's my cell phone number. If you are interested in having a confidential conversation about what would be involved in joining eXp, and the ins and outs of that, reach out to me. It does matter what group you're in, because I found agents that had joined eXp and they had joined somebody someplace else and who's not around and doesn't do any training and they're struggling. My system has my group has lots of extra training and help. How do I get a list of all the fees? In the presentation, there's a copy of it. There's a list of all the fees. There's a slide. $149 to start up, $85 a month, $25 broker review per transaction, $40 E&O fee per transaction, capping at $500. But it's all there in the slides. All right? If you got questions, call me, text me, make an appointment, and let's talk. It's a good time to make a change. All right. Are we?
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
All right. So I'm glad to find out that some people's mics do work. That's great.
Thank you.
I thought for some reason I had muted everybody.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye, Amir.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Stay safe out there. Bye.
What's your reason for leaving, going to eXp? Where were you before you transferred over?
Where was I when I moved to eXp? I was working with a couple of little independents, names you haven't heard of, just because I had gotten tired of bureaucracy. One of my biggest issues with Keller Williams was the bureaucracy, because there was team leaders at every office and operating principals above the team leader and regional directors above the operating principals, and the turnover was crazy, and a lot of the managers in the area Silicon Valley don't have California real estate licenses. Some of them have never sold real estate anywhere to anyone, and they're running these offices, and it was just difficult dealing with the bureaucracy. And, I'd gone to I was at Century 21 for a while, but that's just like an outdated bureaucracy. It really wasn't, much of an improvement. It's an old, tired brand. That's my opinion. And so I thought maybe I'll try, the independent little boutique thing. But what I learned is that in order to have a minimum level of technology and systems for people, you need to have the resources of a big company. And then I also had to make the decision, am I going to play a small game? And I have a broker's license and I have a DBA and I can buy E&O. But to me, it's a small game for me to start, Devlin real estate brokers, right, and associates or whatever, and to try and get 100%, keep all the company dollars, rather than developing a team. My production team has people in San Diego, in Los Angeles, and Riverside, and Sacramento, and Oakland, and San Francisco, all over the place. And so I decided I wanted a bigger game. And one of the things I really like about eXp is they don't have all that bureaucracy. Right? There's people there to answer questions and things like that, but I don't have to deal with a team leader who's changed his mind and wants to do something different and doesn't know what they're doing because they were just hired and will be fired in another year anyhow. It was very difficult to deal with all that.
There is a question. My question is that, for example, sometimes the people know the theory of the real estate, but the needs that vary to be better or practical, not only theory. Do you have the team can assist and to coach for practical experiences?
That's what I do. I have classes every week. I teach. Many of you that are online have seen my classes. Those are practical classes.
Hello, you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I thought I was answering you. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Hello, Michael. Do you hear me?
We hear you, Michael.